Hemshech Chaim Beis, Volume 1. We're up to chapter 97, page Kuf Pei Zayin 187. And we're in the middle of a discussion of three interpretations of Sfira. What does a Sfira mean? Sphiris. The first interpretation for 9 chapters was discussed from the word number, Misper. The second interpretation, which we're in the middle of now, is Sipur, a narrative, to tell a story. And we've been discussing here the story that the Sphiris tell. Basically, they're telling us the story of God. Just like when a adult tells a story to a child, a parent to a child. You tell the story of your life. You tell the story of your parents' life, your grandparents, great-grandparents. You tell the story of who you are. It's not just stories about things that happen, it's also who you are. So the Sphiris tell the story of the divine. They tell the story of what God is like, and God's so-called personality, the way God manifested in a personality, which we call the world of Atzilus. So Atzilus is essentially, God obviously is less machshava tfisa beklal, no thought can grasp him. He's beyond any tzir. He's beyond any structure or shape. Like he said all the way in the beginning when we spoke about Tzelem Elikim. So he quoted there and said that even though ein le dmus aguf ve'en le guf, but nevertheless God chose to create an existence, and He wanted to have a relationship with this existence. So in His infinite power, He manifested Himself in structure. In the words of the Medrash, when you say, what are the names of God? So he says, Lefi maisi ani nikra, according to my actions, that's what I'm called. In other words, God is beyond any particular definition, but He wanted to manifest in definition. So when God is doing chesed, you call God Kael. When God is doing gvura, it's Alakim. Havayas, Tiferes, compassion, and so on. So the spheres are basically the building blocks of how God created existence in a way that He wanted us to have a relationship. Like He said a few chapters back, He said that the truth is there could have been a creation without Atzilus, from God's point of view. But then there would be no way we have a connection based on the structure of existence as we know it. It would be no way for us to know or appreciate the divine. So essentially Atzilus, or the Sphiris of Atzilus more precisely, tell the story of the divine. So that's already a revelation. Number, Sphira has number, we spoke earlier. Number also has an element that conceals. It's only conceals, meaning that it's only the external. When you say 1,000,000, the number million is just a symbol for something that's far more than just a million, the word million. It's a symbol. So he says the mispera, it's like the bechina achrein, as he called it. The last level. It's like when you're telling someone you counted a large number of things, so you appreciate it. Then you tell somebody, I just counted 1,000,000 things. So the person is only getting, as he called it, zecher avtuvcha. It's like a siman ba'alma. And the goal there is that the misper, that is so-called volume and quantity, we should appreciate the quality. But now we moved on to a higher level in the meaning of Sphira, that is sipur. So what we've been learning now is, what is the story? So first he began by explaining that containers, the kalim of the spheres, reveal the eris of the spheres. Because air on its own, energy on its own, doesn't have what he calls an achiza, something to hold on to. Air on its own is nostalgic. It expires, it descends upwards. If you don't have a wick, it won't be contained, it won't be grounded. What is the wick? That's the example for containers. It would be like you have great thoughts and ideas, but you're not expressing in words, or you're so consumed with your ideas, there's no expression. Expression requires some type of definition, some type of terms. So that's the first thing he established. At length he discussed in the first Maimer, in the context of story. This is Maimer V'hayahu Emed, the previous Maimer Vayera, from chapter 91 through chapter 94, including 94, explained how Eris, our containers, reveal the Eris. Explained it at length. He said that's the Medrash that says Mehechena Eir Nivras, Amalei, Nisata V'Kodesh Baruch Hu B'Salma. V'Hivik V'Ziv Hadri. Like it says, Eita Er Kesalma. So the Alter Rebbe asks him, and he brings it here. What's the question? Hey, what do you mean Mehechena Nivras? How did anything, could ask the same question, how anything was created? It says, V'Hi Eir, God created everything. What's the Medrash saying? You need a special thing, because it says, Eir, by nature, does not ground it. So the question is not, of course God created Eir, but how does it manifest in Abriya? When Eir is the only thing in creation that does not manifest. So you need a salma, so to speak, a lavush, a garment, the containers to ground it. And he explained this at length, as I said. In this discourse where we're up to now, he began to discuss saying that story, however, that the containers reveal of Eir is not just the story of Chesed and Gvura and Chochmah and Bina of Atzilus. The Lashon of Rabbeinu Shem Tov, which he quotes in the Pardes, in explaining that Sivir from the word story, Sipur, says Machshavas Nalomis. The words of Rabbeinu Shem Tov exactly like this. He says, these are his words. He says, Beboyer Matzosi, I'm reading from page 175. Amai Ikris Sfiris, Mishum HaShamayim Mesaprim Kaved Keil. Close that door. Because I'm a Shemayim Mesaprim Kaved Keil, V'akavona, Kamoisha Adibur V'amichtav Yivayar Bagbalos Elias Murgish. Hadvarim HaNelamim, just like when you speak and when you write, you sense things that are concealed, but Teich Machshavas HaChochem, within the thought of the Chochem. Same things, Shemayim Mesaprim Al Hashem Yisbarach, Shekein HaSfiris, He Megalas HaMachshavas HaNelamis. That's exact language. It reveals hidden thoughts. And the Pardes writes, it tells us, it relates to us and defines the bilti mugbal. As I explained in the previous class, that means that when a person tells a story, a real story, a person who knows how to tell a story, he's not just telling you a detail. He's revealing really his deepest thoughts. A true story. We're not talking about full narishkeit. A true story is revealing the depth of the person, and the depth of his life, and the depth of his soul. So the same thing here, and that's where we're up to now, is that the Sfiris are not just telling the story of Atzilus, meaning what Chesed is like and Gvura is like, is telling the story of the secrets. So he says, what is that? So he said that's the 10 hidden spheres. So first he explained that Atzilus is essentially an interface. An interface, the whole purpose of Atzilus is to let us know that to allow us to know and to feel godliness. Without Atzilus we wouldn't be able to do that. Because Atzilus is a model. It's like a standard. Think of it like the greatest musician in existence. I mean, a musician is not an example because musicians are all flawed, but think of a perfect musician. And he's teaching you, or you're a beginner. You're starting to learn music. So, it's a very distant place. But he shows you, as a teacher, what perfect music looks like. You may never reach there, but you have a standard. You have like a perfect circle. You have a backdrop, which you can compare. If you don't have that, you can convince yourself, I'm already there. So it's important to have always a archetype of what is like perfect chesed. What would be perfect love? I mean, if we all had, that's what the Torah is supposed to provide us with. A perfect example of what chesed, what gvura. Now we start saying like where are you and how do you get there? Like the Alter Rebbe said, that Chassidus teaches you how small you are and how great you can become. Now some people know how small they are, but they don't know how great they can become. And some people know how great they can become, but they don't know how small they are. You need both. You need to know what the destination looks like, what's possible, and you need to know where you are. And so Atzilus is essentially like that backdrop that allows us. This is a picture of what existence could be like, what a human being could be like if you reach that highest level. So in that sense, Atzilus, that's what Atzilus reveals. Now, then he goes further in the previous chapter, where the one before we were learning now, is that it says, so what do the Esser spheres reveal? They reveal not just the spheres themselves, meaning what Chesed and Gvura, but also their root. And where is their root? In the Esser spheres Agnuzis, in the 10 hidden spheres. Which means it reveals. And he explains that 10 hidden spheres is the root, as we learned at length in this Hemshech, is the root all the way in the way God envisioned the structure of existence. We call that Esser spheres Agnuzis. In other words, Shir Atzmei B'Keach. Malchus of Ein Sof. Atzil is the Klolos, These are all basically the same level. There too, there's an envisioning. Obviously, it doesn't have any shape and form. And he explained here in chapter 96, he said that there's the etzem of the 10 hidden spheres, and there's the beginning to flow and extend and be transmit to what be after the tzimtzum, which will ultimately end up being the 10 spheres as we know them in Atzilus. So think of Esser Spheres Agnuzis, if what I just said, the music or the artist, the perfect picture, that's Atzilus. But how is it in the artist's mind? That's already not even a tangible reality. That's just a concept. In the mind, not even it's not even a model yet. Not even you can't call it a model. And that she explains it all in chapter 96. She explains it with an example within ourselves. Remember, everything microcosm, macrocosm. What's the Esser Spheres Agnuzis within the soul? So that's the Keches Atzmin, Etzem HaNefesh. And he explained at length what that means. Basically, if you see revealed faculties, you have to know that there's concealed faculties. But he explains there's two types of concealment. There's a concealed faculty that's just a matter of revealing it. The example would be a helam sheyeshnu b'mitzias. It would be like a coal, a hot coal that you may not see with your eye, but if you fan it, it turns into a flame. Then there's a helam she'einu b'mitzias. If you go further back, the keiches are rooted in a place that you can't even call it a mocker, a source. That would be like a flintstone. Surah Chalamish. There, you touch it, there's no fire, but it's in there. So the potential is there, Keich Hiyuli, and that's rooted in Etzem HaNefesh. She explained basically that there's like 4 steps. There's the Etzem HaNefesh. Yechida is the Keiches Atzmim. These are basically core potential faculties that Etzem HaNefesh, that the soul, its power contains. Yeah. Then comes Keiches Nalamim. I wouldn't call it external. It's closest to Etzem HaNefesh, but it's still a name for the neshama. That's what he says. Then comes the next level, is Keiches Nalamim, or what he calls Hamshach Nalemes. Now it's already a makir. Now you're already talking about something that you can say has some substance. It's already a category of a makir. It's the beginning of a flow. Yeah, and then comes the Keiches Gluyim, when it comes out in revealed fashion. What we see from this also is that there's a progression here, an orderly progression, that is not on any jumps. If it would jump straight from the Etzem HaNefesh, or from the Keiches Atzmin, from the core place, which is not even a root, straight into revealed faculties, which can happen in certain situations when they said like a Talmud Machkem Esrabe, or you have certain what did he say? He said, where was that? Yeah. He doesn't say, he said Talmud Machkem Esrabe. No. Machkem Esrabe. Through Erchezer, through questions. But generally it goes with a flow, so that way you have that even Atzilus is ultimately a Gilead Helam, because the whole point is that you're telling a story. Because if suddenly you're jumping to a level of the divine that's completely beyond this, so it's not a story. You're not revealing it. That's why these progressions are critical. That's what he says here, that it's not Shalei Berech, it jumps, it goes in an orderly fashion. Yeah. So it goes in this fashion. It goes from the core soul, core faculties, root faculties, or source faculties, and then revealed faculties. That's the process. The fourth. The revealed. Yeah. In the 10 hidden spheres itself, there's basically 2 levels. One is how they are core, and one of the way they start already becoming a makir, a source. That's what he said. Everything is a mamutz. Everything is an interface. Okay. They're esef. They're the root of gvul, the root of eir hagvul. That's like an artist envisioning a particular type of art he wants to create. It's energy, but it's a shape, because it's not something else. It's 10, it's chesed, gvura, but it's only in it's complete pshitas, as he says, completely shapeless, because it's all one there. You can't call it really a structure. There's no structure. If it stopped right there, nothing would exist. Before the Tzimtzum, it would be like, it's a Sheina Machshava. But it is. Remember, God doesn't need it, but it creates a stepping stone for us to go there. It's basically part of the bridge between the infinite and the finite. That the infinite envisions the finite. And then comes an actual finite. So now there's something to hold on to. The finite has at least a root to address. Obviously, there's always going to be jumps, but it makes it. Listen, at the end of the day, there's going to always be a need for that what's called Keich HaMathalasis. That last spark that only Atzmus can connect. But wherever there can be order, this says in Chassidus, wherever there can be Seichel and wherever there can be, it's like a relationship. To say we and God are completely distant, say, so what's the point of all these buildings, the stepping stones? No. The point is, because as much as it can be integrated, then there's always going to be a point that there's a mystique to it. Like even a relationship between spouses. As much as possible, you create a bridge. And then there's always that little point, the last point you can say, only Atzmus can really bring together Yesh and Ayin. Like we say about Neshama and Guf. It says, Keich HaMafilasis. The only one that can bring together soul and the body is God, Atzmus. It's two opposites. But that doesn't mean he did it in a way that's crazy. He did it in a way, we are not like a stone. Like, if you took a stone off the street and you put a soul into it, it wouldn't suddenly become talking and speaking. He created a body that's commensurate to the Eris. So we have eyes and ears. So the body is shaped. So even though you'll say there's a point that requires that so-called, who's the first, who presses the button is God. And maybe the last step. But it does it in a way that it develops, a fetus develops and grows, and it's something we can relate to. And so there's a progression that there is a true dira b'tachtenim here. A jump would be that suddenly God says, I want somebody, they pop out on earth. I mean, it would sound weird to us, but that would be like a miracle. Like, could have made, what does he have to make a father and mother altogether? Could make, you want to have a child, get married, and I send you a child from heaven. Heaven, like a soul drops into your house with a what do they call them? With a stork, in the bag. You get a delivery. My point is that there's a process. Okay, so that is chapter 96, essentially sums it up. Okay. It's actually a very powerful psychological model of how faculties. I mentioned yesterday, when you talk, let's say, to someone, you're mentoring someone. So sometimes you see they have the potential, and just a matter of pushing them to reveal it. Sometimes it may not be apparent they have the potential. That would be a mokib, keiches nelamim. Keiches atzmim, you have to dig deeper. That if you're hard of it, if you struggle, if you're pushed, you can bring out strengths that you yourself were not even concealed. They're like coming from the source itself of the soul. Yeah. Okay. So all this is coming to explain. Remember, we're still in the middle of an example. It's all the example. The Keich HaMaskil, by the way, he calls Mokar HaSeichel. It's all an example to understand the story. So we're using now the story how it is in Atzilus. So we're using essentially, we're looking inside ourselves essentially at the 10 hidden spheres and the 10 revealed spheres in Keiches HaNefesh is the Keiches Atzmim and the Keiches Gluyim with the Keiches Nalamim in between. So we have all that. It's actually a very powerful way to look at it. In Tanya he says, in the beginning, in chapter 3, he says, Eser Sviris, Eser Keiches HaNefesh and Nishtalshel Mehen, Eser Sviris, that is the 10 spheres, and Nishtalshel Mehen, from there was evolved the 10 Keiches HaNefesh. It means the 10 faculties in us is really the 10 spheres as they manifest in a human being. That's the Tzelem Elikim. So really, the 10 spheres of Atzilus was within us, except it went through Levushim, as he explains, of 10 spheres of Bria, Yitzira, Asiyah. So it's not, we're not Neshamas of Atzilus. We're rooted there, but with many garments. But that means, I didn't say it, but that means if you take it a step further, since the 10 spheres of Atzilus are rooted in the 10 hidden spheres, so you have to say the 10 Keiches are rooted also in 10 hidden. That's the Keiches Atzmim that he's describing here. So he's continuing on the discussion now, all to understand Rabbeinu Shem Tov's words, Machshavas Nalamas, that it reveals hidden thoughts, which is the 10 hidden spheres, but we're still in the example. It's not just an example, it's really how it manifests down below. The Rebbe brings sometimes from Chassidus, when we say Amoshel and Nimshel, Usually we say a mashal is like, you use an external, incidental example to explain a nimshal. Now, Pichsidis, it's not like that. The mashal is the nimshal in a garment. So we are actually a mashal for Elikus, not just an example to learn from it. A mashal is the embodiment of a nimshal, which is far deeper understanding of the whole idea. Which is, it says, Torah is mashal hakadmeni, the primordial example, because it's an example for the divine. But it's not just an example like, I'll use an example like I saw something today in the street. God forbid. It's a core example. It's also divine. So essentially, when you say fire tells us what Gvura is, it's not just an example for Gvura. It's Gvura. What's called Gvura reincarnate is fire, and Chesed reincarnate is water. So it's not a disconnect. The divine right now, everything in existence is spheres, but they have the garments of physicality. So the physical is only a outer expression of an inner energy. So just like the example, when you see somebody cry, you see tears come out of their eyes, you don't say, because they have tears, that's why they're sad. First they're sad, but sadness doesn't look like anything. Sadness, for some reason, manifests itself that it causes tears, or you see a smile on someone's face. In other words, outer reality, as we know it, is only a package of an inner reality. It's a mashal. That means a mashal. So a mashal is not just an outer example like we would do in other schools of thought. In Torah, a mashal is the nimshal package. So basically, going back to this, is that the faculties we're talking about here, on all levels, are similar to the way it works above. Now obviously, that's why he says the parentheses. Now I realize. Remember I had a problem. In Keiches, I'm reading the bottom of the foot in the bottom. He says, Shamushleus mekeiches, the gamri kolel b'teiches kamish einem tzayim ima mitzchilas seisavus. You see, you can't say Estes Firas Agnuz is really in us, because Estes Firas Agnuz is Mamish God. It's an example. So he's saying, in the faculties, you could say from the beginning of a human being's life, as soon as you have a soul, he has it in its faculties. But Lamaila, you can't say it inside of, it's only in Ein Sof you can say such a thing. That's what he's saying. From its beginning, the soul has that. Yeah. Okay, so we continue chapter 97. I said again, this is continuing. Where did he leave off? He said, the Inyan Amshach and Alamas, Shamushal Metzias Hadover, Shamakri level, Ena Mushal Me'etzem Hadover. So the hidden, concealed faculties are beyond Mushlal, negate. No, that's how you understand. That's what he means. Yeah, is beyond so-called the defined structure of intelligence, but it's still a mokatit. So you can't say it's mushal from the etzem adav. When you're talking the core faculties, atzim is keiches hayulim, etzem. There, it's even you can't even call it seichel, even though it's going to come from there. Here, you could at least call it seichel, but as the beginning, it's like the source of all intelligence. So it already has a personality of intelligence. Huh?
The atzmi is like the surah halam.
Yeah. He said, he even said in the parentheses, he said very strong words about it. He said, the words were, where's the Yeshlem? Yeshlem Zashem Kechas, and everything Zashem is pastors. Here, this when you say it's faculties, so what are the faculties? It's not that it's an extension or revelation from the Nefesh. Mashinim Tzoyim in a Nefesh. It's together with there, and it just emerges from them, from the soul, from it. That's why it's atzmi. Good. V'yuven zeh. Yeah, because but that's a whole different discussion, not relevant here. He said here earlier also, the kelim are more powerful than the air. The haraya they can bring down the air because their root is higher. But bottom line is they are concealing. Look, when you speak, you are revealing your thought, but you're also concealing. That's why it's revealing. It's which we discussed earlier. It reveals while it conceals. But that's for the recipient. If you talk about pure energy, it's far greater in the source. So, but the fact that Levushim could conceal and could express means they have some power from a very high place. I wouldn't say etzem, no. In the etzem and nefesh, there's nothing higher than etzem. Yeah, you say Ashis, the Ashis are mushras, are rooted in the etzem and nefesh. But that doesn't mean they are. Remember, rooted and is not the same thing. Oyer is higher than containers. Containers are rooted in a place that's higher. That's why you have the ability. So that's a big difference. It would be like saying sparks that fall in dark places are rooted in higher places, but they're not higher than a Sefer Torah, which is revealed godliness, obviously. We say the power of a Baal Tshuva. It's after he does Tshuva, but there's power in there. But to say that a person who's not yet done Tshuva, that he's higher than a tzaddik, for sure not. When say, it depends what you mean by higher also. You're talking about revealed higher, you're talking about potential higher. The Yuvin Zemi Inyan Hasagan Elamas. Yuvin what? So it's still in the example. Remember, this is all it all began this discussion at the beginning of chapter 96. Example of Eser Sfiras Hagnuzah. So let's not forget that. So Yuvin Zeh, to understand this whole thing we just talked about, he's going to be more specific. He's going to give a specific example of how this process works. So we said there's the essence of the soul, the core soul, core faculties, hidden faculties, which is already a mokir, and then revealed. So he wants to explain it now with a... So we'll understand this from Inyan Hasagan Elemes. From literally means Hasagan Elemes, he called it for Hamshachan Elemes, this third level, the mokir level, which is basically the Eser Sfiras Hagnuzah as they're already beginning to extend. So what does he say? Like he says in the Kitzur, okay. So what's Hasagan Elemes? Yeah, but Hamshachan Elemes is right. Exactly. In general, he's talking now. He's giving an example in the mind. Hasagan Elemes means a comprehension that is concealed. Dihine kol haskola, haskolas v'hasagas davar hazei spashtus keich hachachma. Let's explain now. Dihine because now every intelligence and comprehension of something of anything is already an extension of the power, the faculty of wisdom, not the etzem, not the essence, not the core faculty. And I read it wrong. Which means even though Chochmah is Haskalah, is intelligence, which means not just the power, it's already a state of intelligence. When you have an idea, even though the idea is not developed, you can't call it potential intelligence. You can't call it the source. It's already the intelligence. It's the cognitive process has begun with the idea. Even if you don't develop it, it's begun. It's already Haskalah. Nevertheless, this intelligence is not the core aspect of the faculty. It's only an extension and a reflection of it. I know this is very abstract. He's going to explain, I think, in the parentheses. But let me just say a few words so we have a little understanding what Pashtus and Etzem is. Etzem is Pashtus, generally speaking, is like when you say the sun. The sun, the Etzem HaShemesh, is the sun itself. We've never been in the sun. We experience this Pashtus of the sun, this Pashtus Ha'er of the sun, as the sunlight reaches us. So if you want to give an example, you say that light is the Pashtus, and the sun itself is the Etzem. Just one example. So when you're saying the same thing in anything that you apply, there's always two states. There's the thing itself, and there's what it's extending to you. The extension is always weaker than the thing itself, obviously. So we'll see where he's going with this, but he's beginning to explain the process of how. So when you the process of intelligence. So when you actually comprehend an idea or begin to think of an idea, it's clearly he's saying that that's not the core Chochmah, it's an extension of Chochmah. It's not to say that Chochmah is not intelligence. That's what he just said now. Chochmah is. Chochmah is a cognitive process that begins an idea. But it's not the etzem of Chachma, it's only an extension of Chachma. We'll soon understand that. Hopefully he explains it. If not, we'll have to discuss it. So he says in parentheses, by Inyan Hu, and the Inyan in this is, my understanding is when he says in the parentheses, that means that probably what's outside of the parentheses is from a mimer from previous. Because if it was the Rebbe Rashab's original, why would he put it in a parentheses? It appears it's a language from the Alter Rebbe or some of the previous Maimorim, and he's explaining it. That's how I would I assume. But I'd have to find it actually to be sure. It could be that he's explaining his own things, but probably not. The Inyan Hu, in Kol Haskolas V'Hasogas Dover, Haskolas V'Hasogas Dover, Hu Ba Be'eze Prat Dover. Okay, he's explaining it now. Just for the record, before I go on, very many times you find in Torah Shalom or Maimorim that the Rebbe Rashab would say the Maimor, and then by Chazorah it says the Chayzurim wrote down that by Chazorah he added explanation. The Rebbe Rashab would add explanation. So it's also possible that because I saw it in a few places in Naim Beis that when he wrote it the first time, it could be he was asked questions. So when he edited it, he may have added Havana into his own words, which is also possible. Just because it looks like that. He say the line. He says, so he's explaining. So what's the explanation? Every comprehension of an idea, it comes in something specific. Hainu hadover hamusig, which means the thing that is comprehended. V'yesh b'zeh beis inyanim, and it has within it two things: haskolas v'hasogas hadover hamusig, the comprehension and the understanding and the comprehension and understanding of the thing that is being understood, the concept. The etzem haskola, and the etzem haskola, the essential idea. Hainu yediyas hadover hamusig, the knowledge of this idea. What the distinction between this is, I'm not so sure. We'll soon see. Let's see what he says. The etzem haskola v'hasoga gamshu b'hadover hamusig, and the etzem haskola, the higher level, the core idea. Even though it's also in the same idea, in truth, it's really higher than the concept.
It's like you're explaining something to somebody, and that part is subject, and you're responsible for doing a little bit of the hustle with it.
Yeah, I don't want to interpret. I want to read it first. Then, where I think he's going is like this: that when you explain something to someone, there's the core idea, and there's how you're explaining it. It's not the same thing. There's the details, is where you're describing it. But then there's the idea itself. That's why somebody, for example, can hear an idea. They're not going to have the same appreciation than the one who really taught it until they get to that level. In other words, and we're not talking in Chachma and Bina, we're talking in wisdom itself, that there's two things. There's like you get the core of it, or you get the explanation of it. Like I said, with the sun or the reflection. I don't want to elaborate. Let's read till the end and let them see what, because he's saying things here. So he says, "Be'etzem, the etzem haskol is l'mayla mahamusig." It's, in other words, higher really than a comprehended thing. Because what is it that makes unique that the person who really gets it? Is he getting a comprehended thing, or is it something beyond comprehension that he's explaining? In other words, I'm not talking about faith now. I'm talking about... Right, what's that? Shari hamusig hu inyan prati. Because the comprehension is already a detail. Mashu hamusig, vos der musig is. Which defines and expresses the concept. Like in Yiddish he says, vos der musig is. You're already explaining so you're already into a detailed description of what the concept is. V'haskola ain't a prati, but the seichel itself is not a specific thing. It's more of it's a like almost an abstract theory. I'll give you an example. Imagine one seichel, one idea that branches off into two things. You have ideas, and when you start branching them off, you have corollaries, right? You have theorems and corollaries in mathematics. So you have one idea, it branches off into two. Yeah, that's an example. Yeah. The inyanim that they branch off into are details. This one is going into this direction, this one that direction. But the idea, the core idea where they came from, is not broken in, is not distinct in details. He's explaining it more. Like a person, Maven Davar, you say by being a Maven Davar, Meter Davar, a person understands one thing from another. They extract. It's extrapolation. So you hear an idea, the one who gave you the idea didn't mean necessarily the second thing, but you drew out of that, you say, there are examples for it, there are many examples for it. Hari, Hema Dvarim Pratim Uvdalim. So these two things, the Davar, Meter Davar, are two separate Davars. They're not the same idea, that's the whole point. Even though one could not have come without the other, if you didn't hear the first thought, the first concept, you wouldn't have been able to derive the other one. But it's a separate one. They're in the Dvarim Uvdalim, Pratim Uvdalim. Askola behem achasi. But the concept in them is one. Because it's the same logic. How do you extract, how do you derive that conclusion? Because you use this theory and you apply it to another area. So theory, they're the same. But in details, they're completely two different manifestations. It's a very powerful parenthesis here. U'kamoi keinu b'chol seichel b'frat. The same things with every sichli b'frat, with every specific seichel, every intelligent idea. The comprehended idea, the comprehension of it is already how the mind is manifesting in a specific way. And the haskola of it, meaning the etzem haskola, even though it's also in that prat, it's not outside of it. It's fundamentally removed, or mufshetes, it's almost like abstract. Mufshet is like undressed. It's not manifest in the detail. And this is the etzem inyan haskola. This is the core idea of intelligence that's higher than manifestation and graspable with tfisa and contained in any particular thing. Even though it's this intelligence that's intuiting or conceiving and mischakim analyzing, I guess, or understanding a particular thing. However, the etzem haskola, the essence, the core idea of hakavoni al haskola b'peil. In other words, he's not talking about koyach hamaskal. He's going back. He's not talking about the power of intelligence. We're already talking about in a state of intelligence is going on here. It's already chokhmah. It's not the power. It's still above the object, the object, the concept, or the thing that is being understood. The davar hamushal. The rak haroshe hu hamislabish b'nitus ba'davar hamushal. Only its reflection is what manifests and contains in the idea that's being understood. And this reflection is surely only an extension. Nevertheless, even the etzem keicha chachma is also only an extension and reflection from the source of the power of chachma. Oh boy. Okay.
Why do you have to say
a lot of levels here, so we'll have to spell them out.
Why do you have to say that there was in Slavish? Why not the seichel itself in Slavish?
Yeah, that's the rule, but the reason for the seichel is very simple. I'm going to give an example. The Ragachover is a very good example, I think, for this. The Ragachover did the opposite. He took a whole bunch of halachas. He looks in Gemaras and halachas. Very different. You would never find this commonality, and strips them from their expression, and comes up with a concept. That concept you suddenly see in completely different idioms. I'll give you an example. Let's talk an example, because you need examples to really relate to this. He talks about Mefanech Tzvenish Rav Kasher collected all the theories, of the Ragachover. So he talks, let's say, about time. Time. Is time a composite of details, or time one flow, one entity? Let's take, there's halacha, for example, Shabbos. There's a difference, two opinions. If someone, God forbid, desecrates Shabbos, is it as if the whole Shabbos has been desecrated, or it's only that moment, and then it continues, Kedusha Shabbos. Yeah. So you can explain this machlekes in many ways. Or the Rogatchover says it's a question of how they see time. If time is one entity, so you could say Kedusha Shabbos is a 24-hour period called Shabbos. You take away one piece, the whole thing falls, so to speak. It's not the halacha, but I'm just saying in theories. Or, no, every second is renewed, and every second is a piece. It's like, is it particle or wave? It could be both, but I'm just saying two different things. And he takes this theory and then applies it to Sfiras Eimer, for example. Sfiras Eimer, is it one entity or is it details? There's also different ways to look at it. There's a whole different agreements. You can once you stripped it from the specific manifestation of Shabbos, you can apply this theory of time into so many areas. Now, if you really think about it, before the halacha is developed, God created the world. How did He create time? That's really the question. So if you're talking about etzem ha-chochma, I'm not talking about etzem kayach ha-chochma. The etzem of the haskalah is the theory of time. The expression of it here, it's in Shabbos, here it's in Sfiras Eimer, here it's in the Hilchos Nida, the different places. Why am I using this example? Because that's ha'orah. If you really go this way, what you're getting in Shabbos is already a reflection of the idea. You see it there, and you can explain it. But if you really want, the core idea is really an analysis what time is like. And I think you can go through all the different, like you speak all these different machlekes about Shammai and Hillel. So basar kayach, basar peil. Kayach and peil is a whole discussion outside of Shammai and Hillel. What's potential? What's actual? Why do you go by potential? Why do you go by actual? We come to it through the different disagreements they have. It's also, same thing. Even actually, Shammai and Hillel, Chesed and Gvura. Chesed and Gvura is leniency, and Gvura is harshness. We know that stringency. We know it manifests in halacha, but it also manifests in the story with Hillel, with the potential ger. So he was strict, and when he said, "I want to learn the whole Torah standing on one foot," he threw him out, and Hillel was lenient. You can go away from that and say a whole shita, and how you makadav people, which is completely outside of the halachas, whether it's halachas of Hilchos Chanukah, how you light candles. So you're going to a core subject matter. So when you're on that core level, you're talking about the theory of the idea, as opposed to its expression and manifestation. I'm just giving some examples. It's pretty clear when you read it. He just says some examples. I'm sure there's other examples. But all this is still not the etzem kayach ha-chochma. So we're getting here a bunch of levels. Let's see here what the levels are. Let's spell them out. 1 second. Let me go. Yeah. So we have here, I see here 4 levels at least, maybe even more. But is the Koyach HaMaskeli hasn't even mentioned. That's the power to conceive. That's outside of this. So, I don't even know about that. Maybe it's even higher. That's why I'm not sure. But there's the Etzem Koyach HaChochma, which is one second. Okay, so it's not the Koyach LaHaskell, it's the Inyan Haskalah Atzma. Okay, so in Chachma there's 2 things. We just said there's the concept, the Etzem Chachma, the core theory, like we said, like he says, the Inyan Echad before it branches off, and then there's how it branches off. Got that? And then there's the Etzem Koyach HaChachma. And even the first one, the theory, is also a step below, and therefore, like he says, a reflection of Hispashtus. So Etzem. So we're really talking about 3 things, well, for practical purposes: Etzem Koyach HaChachma, Etzem HaSkola, and the Ha'orah of the Haskalah, the Haskalah Atzma. Is that how he goes? There's a binyan. Haskalah Hasagas HaDover and Etzem Haskalah. Right. Okay. Now, what's Etzem Koyach HaChachma? That's the question. So now he goes back outside the parentheses. I just want to make sure I got this right. Yuvan Zemi'in Hasagan Elemis. He still hasn't explained what Hasagan Elemis is. We'll get back to that. But let me just go back before the parentheses. Hine kol Haskalah Hasagas HaDover is a Spashus Koyach HaChachma. Like Etzem Koyach HaChachma. Okay. Ima yesh HaChachma Haskalah, I know later Koyach HaSkolah, Kimu In Haskalah Atzma, Chomeg In Haskalah Etzem HaKoyach, Kimu Spashus. Okay. So I'm not sure the parentheses. In Haskalah Etzem HaKoyach, Kimu Spashus Ha'orah. Is he talking about Ima yesh HaChachma Haskalah? No, one second. I'm just wondering, before the parentheses, what does he explain? What is the parenthesis? So in the beginning, before the parentheses, it appears that there's only two things. At the end of the parentheses, it appears there are three things. Yeah, clearly. That's what you see? When you read before the parentheses, it appears there's the etzem keich hachachma, which appears like the theory, and then there's these passages of it. But then at the end of the parentheses, he makes it clear that there's three things.
Like in the scholar itself.
Yeah. And the Kol HaSkol has this pashtus keich hachachma like etzem keich hachachma. Im yesh hachachma haskol and lo like keich haskol has been haskol etzem keich. Okay, fine. I'm reading after the parentheses. V'ha'arahi Yeah. And the reflection is b'seidev hadraga. The reflection comes in an orderly progression, in an orderly fashion, order and levels, hierarchy. The lepamim at times mispashtes yeshed, lepamim membiyut. Sometimes it extends more, sometimes less. Kamei b'seichel gadol, like in a seichel gadol, a great idea, a grand concept. Yesh b'yesem eira chachma b'seichel katan, has a lot more energy of intelligence than a small idea. So there's grand ideas and small ideas. What would you give an example for a grand idea? E equals mc squared. There's a grand idea. A small idea is that I'm going to get myself now a cup of coffee. I don't know if that's an idea. The idea. Grand idea and a small idea. Okay. So now he's talking about levels in the ha'ara. Fine. Wow. This is a real analysis of seichel. V'chein b'chacham gadol, that's an idea. It's the same thing as in an individual. Chacham gadol, a very smart person. Chacham, how would you translate chacham gadol? A brilliant man, a brilliant person. But chacham gadol as opposed to chacham katan, I don't know, I wouldn't call it intellectual necessarily, but chacham gadol, a great mind. Meir mispashte erach chacham yesod. So by Chacham Gadol radiates and extends Eira Chacham more, and by a Chacham Katan, he's still a Chacham, but he's not as wise. It radiates compared to him Eira Chacham b'miyat. This Eira Chacham radiates less. And from the diminished state, he can arrive to a greater state. He can grow. Like we see in the growth of the normal growth of intelligence. That first you know and appreciate and comprehend and understand the smaller idea, a lesser idea, and from this you come to grow to a greater idea, a greater seichel. Meaning in the same seichel itself even. Or definitely new seichel. In other words, you grow. It's a constant, it's an accumulative process. That's how a person grows. Like the same thing like by intelligent people. A smaller, a person who's lesser wise but on a lower level, in time becomes a chacham gadol. V'chacham hagadol melamed es hakatan. And it's also the greater Chacham also teaches and educates, trains the smaller one. All this is describing an orderly progression. It's very, very clear. There's states, there's levels. There's more Chacham and less Chacham. There's a higher Chacham, lower Chacham, and it's growth. And where there's possible education and growth from level to level. However, for someone who radiates the essence, the core power of Chachma, there's a particular level. This is a Chacham, it's at Etzem Keich Chachmaseh. The Rabbeim said that on specific individuals, very few. I don't know, but I'm saying Koyach be'etzem Koyach Chachmasa is someone who is a wise person. Be'etzem Koyach Chachmasa, what does that mean? It means by this core power of wisdom. We're not talking here, he has more wisdom. We're not talking about quantity, even quality. Huh? It's a completely different level. He's basically at the source. He's at the mouth of the well, you can say. One second. His comprehensions are awesome, are beyond, are wondrous, relative. Be'erach. Be'erach sometimes means shlei berach, meaning beyond. Huh? Compared. Be'erach. Shelo yesh klal hasogas ke'elu b'chacham zulasei. That these ideas are completely, these comprehensions are completely not there by another wise person outside of him. So it's not a matter of educating and training. It's a different level. You're talking about a different dimension. And it goes to parentheses, meaning compared to someone, obviously, whose wisdom is primarily an expression of the wisdom. And we're not even talking about a person who's not a chacham here. That's okay, so we're talking here at least in the world of chacham.
The spashtus is accumulation.
Spashtus accumulates, absolutely, yeah. And that level, I guess, of a wisdom wise, you can't even imagine, can't even envision such comprehensions. Completely different league. And even he, the wise person who has that Tzemkei Chachmasi, cannot transmit and communicate this comprehension. That's what he says. I thought because he can't, because the other person doesn't have it. Because even he in himself doesn't. It's not even really comprehension. It's beyond comprehension. Not because of the limitation of the masi. Yeah? Right. He himself is beyond. It's interesting. It means he can't even explain it to himself. He just has it. It's an interesting point. Because if he did understand it, why can't he explain it? He'll tell me the formula. Teach me the method,
You're using a very extreme case.
It's not me. I'm reading what it says here. There's no explanation. I just read it. Extreme case? He's describing a level. I don't know if it's called extreme. You're talking about you may not have met someone like that, but that doesn't mean it's not a level. I don't know if it's extreme. It's a level.
He said playhouse.
Yeah. I don't remember the details, but I remember. Yeah. But this is very interesting. Perek. So if you ever meet someone who thinks he's wise, tell him to read this Perek.
Even sometimes he gets to a level which he can't bring down to himself.
He doesn't say sometimes. He says he never. It's just not that place. It makes it very clear. I mean, the exceptions we'll see. Let's continue. Because the containers of comprehension, even by this person, are too small to contain such a type of core intelligence. That's what he's saying here. In other words, he's basically saying it's higher than seichel, really. It's not pure seichel.
But he knows that
no, it's not amunah, and it's not seichel. But he's just explaining a level of etzem koyach hachachma. We'll read back in the beginning after we finish this, because see exactly where we're going. V'alkein lo yuchel legalis v'levayir zeh b'dibur. And that's why he cannot reveal and explain this in words. U'kama sheyidaber b'zeh, and how much he will speak about it, lo yizeh mashu etzem kavanose ba'inyan. It will not be sufficient. It won't be what is really the core intention in the subject matter. Because speech reveals only that which is manifest, contained in the containers of comprehension. This comprehension is beyond containment, beyond being held, being grasped in the containers of comprehension. It's not even chodev, he says, and it's close to the knowing of the sight of chachma, like sight. It's like almost seeing something. You can explain it all day to someone who hasn't seen it, but they haven't seen it. They haven't seen it.
Huh? And you can't get the core necessarily to
Even to yourself, yeah. You say, I saw it, I can explain as much, I can explain.
Getting it, but you have to explain it.
Right.
It's like the Merkava, you know.
I love your examples, like you saw the Merkava
No,
recently.
but I read the
No, I understand, I understand. Then he continues, even though it's still comprehension. Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought he was saying the Merkava that he saw.
That was a very good example.
Yeah. And you also have Yeshaya and Cheskel, one Kara with
He
Richard.
saw something, but he
Yeah.
the words to give it over.
Okay, I got it. Good. Yeah, it's a good example. Okay, so it's hasaga. It's comprehension, but there's an element in it of knowing. I know it. I get it. That's like seeing it. And it's more fitting, more appropriate to say it's like this, the comprehension of sichlim nivdalim. The sichlim nivdalim are, that's like the malachim. Yeah, that. They're called sichlim nivdalim because they're not within any body, without any container. They're not in a brain. It's sichlim nivdalim. It's like a part, intelligent concepts that are flying.
Different wavelength.
Yeah, different frequency. V'chein yochali is b'chol inyan sichli, and the same is possible. Let's stop a second. I just want to go back, make sure I got this now. It's only the extension. Etzem koyach hachachma. Im yesh hachachma yaskola, and lo rak koyach lahaskil. Kimin yaskol atzma, so im kol yaskol etzem koyach hacham kimis pashas arovat. So really, this is the third level. So in other words, what we spoke before, the theory, what he called etzem haskola, the two things in the parentheses, this is higher than that. That's clear from the end of the parentheses. Okay. Okay, so essentially we have three levels here. We have the etzem koyach chachma we were just describing. It's beyond explanation. It's a form of seeing. Sichlim nivdalim. You have etzem. Then you have etzem haskola. That already is. You comprehend that the one idea before it's broken into details, and then you have the way it's broken into details. So the last two are, I guess, more possible to teach and grow. The first one not. But the middle one, I was thinking the middle one is really an expression. If you have etzem koyach hachachma, you can do that. Okay, fine, but there is three levels. Like, we could understand, even though we could understand, let's say, the Ragat Chover's clothing, but we didn't conceive of it. And if we asked him, how would you do it, he may not be able to tell us. So, we do know that there's two stages, but the third stage of actually being one that creates it, one that conceives like that, it's another story. So, in other words, a great teacher can teach us things we don't know, but the etzem koyach hachachma is something that remains in the domain of like seeing, only if you see. Like trying to explain colors to a blind person.
Is this kind of ma'atzim or
I don't know. He's going to go back, I'm sure, to that. I'm not sure. He said it's an example for Sogan Alemus. I don't even want to go there because I'm not sure what by him is hell and what's Metzias here. It sounds to me that Etzem Koyach HaChachma that we're talking is probably Atzmi. That's what I would think. This level. That's why it's not even a Mokir. That's why you can't see a Mokir, he said, flows, begins to flow. This is not even a Mokir. I think that's what I would assume. He's using, this chapter is definitely an example of one Koyach that he's taking. The same thing can be said about Chesed and Gvur. He's using Chochmah here, wisdom, as the I don't know which one's the Ma. There's a lot of Ma's here. Okay, let's continue. But with no reason to guess, he's probably going to spell it out. Yeah. I probably think not, because it's not even a Mokir. To see, the Shogun Alemus would be the middle level. That's what I think. But I don't know. We'll see. You know what? I don't want to. It's ridiculous to guess. V'chein yochali is b'chol inyan sichli levad. It's going to sichli levad. Sichli levad askol. Yeah. And the same thing. Okay, so we just said this. The same thing can be in every sichli, in every idea. Levad askol and niglish shaboy. Besides the revealed intelligence in it, Shezeh Yedua L'chol Chacham, that's known to every wise person. Har Yutefes as Inyan Be'efen Acher Legamri. This person, right? That this person grasps this idea a completely different way. That's not comprehensible. That's not known at all to anyone besides this Chacham. In other words, what he's adding here, one second. He's adding here is, till now he said, that he has that power. Now he's saying that power applies to every idea, even going a step further. Even the ideas that is comprehended by others, he has a different level of comprehension that cannot be explained. So it's going even further. Because till now you could say, you know what he understands, no one can get him, but everything else is, everyone understands equally. He's saying, no, even what others understand, he can understand in a deeper way that they can't. V'gam, he's talking, yeah.
Now he's talking
Yeah.
about every person.
No. The Etzem Koyach Chacham he gets it differently than every person. That's the point.
And maybe everybody gets it from each other.
It's another story. That's not what he's discussing here. Of course he's talking. He's saying. That's what he's saying. V'gam hu ein bi'yicholte klal legalis mashu yedei b'inyan hazeh. And like he said before, in general, now also in this seichel, even though others get the idea in their level, he can't explain it.
So what is in Mechadish? This is the same thing.
It's not. I just explained to you what he's mechadish. Before he said just the general thing that this person has a different way of comprehension. Period, and people can't get that. So you could say that's fine. See, he has ideas they don't have. What about the ideas they do have? That's what he's adding now. Even that, he has a different level of understanding. Even things that they do get on their level.
It says it could be in every Indian city.
Exactly, meaning every sikhli, no matter what. So exactly, yeah. So Gam hu ein bi'yicholte klal. It's not obvious. It's not obvious. It's not. That's what he's explaining out. He's spelling it out. If you give me another interpretation, I'd love to hear it. He's moving away from the Krei Chetz Mechal. He's going to another. No, for sure not.
I mean,
anyway.
A smart guy who's listening from a simple guy. The simple guy also he might not even be able to get to the of a lower person. I mean, I can see it working in both ways.
But that's not relevant here. Why is this the discussion? He's talking about a very particular level. He's talking about a certain type of individual that is connected to the mouth of the well of Chokhmah, the core power of Chokhmah. He's comprehended. He's not saying relative here. He's talking very, very. This is absolute terms he's speaking here. He's not speaking relative.
He's saying it's always a cloud, not a puppet.
Not a klal prat. He's a person who just gets things in a different level because his whole level of wisdom is different. He's connected to that level. And then there are people who are not connected to that level. It's a different level of genius. There's some geniuses that are not like others. He uses etzem keicha chachma. He didn't explain why he has it. No, not necessarily. Potentially, or... Well, let me put it this way. Everyone has an neshama d'atzilus.
I mean, comes from.
Yeah, you can come from, but doesn't mean you have it. Look, everyone's mushish and atzmus. Look, let's be specific. There are people born differently than others. It's a fact of life. And one person will never come to that level. There's nothing wrong with that. Not everyone has to come to this level. It's not his goal, huh? Equal but different. Ain't they saying Shabbos? This doesn't make this person superior. So what? And he also does not have the ability to reveal what he knows in this thing. So two people are learning the same subject matter, and one person just gets it completely different than the other, and he can't even explain what he gets differently. Huh? Okay, 1 second. However, with effort, with exertion, he can express this idea in short words that carry the idea. Not in a way that it's revealed in them, in these words, right? Because it cannot be revealed. That's Hasagan Alemis. It's a little gili from that place. That only in a hidden, concealed type of hasaga. In other words, you're learning it with this person, and you can sense something he says that there's beyond. That's hasaga nelamas. The bridge between one and belevad. So it's only hasagas. It's only a concealed comprehension in this core chokhmah that's higher than comprehension that's revealed even to himself.
Like the Alter Rebbe took Seichel Eliki and put it Chassidus in Seichel.
That's a good example. Yeah. What he's saying here, I mean, not saying anything very. He just said that when he's understanding an idea completely different than anyone. He can't explain it. Read the Rak again. But with Yigiyah, with strong effort, exertion, you can describe it in some short words. Shaneisim is saying that carry the inyan. That's hasaga nelamas. What does that mean? That it's coming. The etzem koyach hachacham that he has is still the core intelligence that's there. The people who get it otherwise are there. But there's one little bridge. With effort, he could reveal something of it. And that's what's called a concealed. It's an etzem koyach moshalayim hasaga niglis. Even to himself. That's why it's hasaga nelamas. Because why? He can't even explain it to himself or to others. But he could say something. So what is he saying? These Eishis K'tzaris is hasaga nelamas. It means even to himself it's not really comprehensible, but something, he's able to give them a taste of it. That's how I would define hasaga nelamas. The taste of his etzem koyach chachmaseh. Yeah. So relative to niglis, it's not. Hasaga niglis because shalamayla hasaga niglis. Okay. And so is hasaga nelamas is higher than ma'al hasagas niglis gam ba'atzmi. Talk to me English, because I don't understand. I just explained what it is. He just said this level where Yigiyah, when he's when he said, I want to say it again. Eishis K'tzarim Sheneisim Inyan is hasaga nelamas. To which person? But with Yigiyah, he could find some short words to express a taste of it. That's hasaga nelamas. No, he says it's not, because he can't really fully explain it. He says, "Loishu ben bizgal." Read the lines. He answers it. Loishu ben bizgal ki yevshali is bizgal kim basaga nelamas. He's saying it's giving a taste of something, but not complete revelation of it. It's more than completely concealed, but it's not revealed either. It's in between. If there's no Yigiyah, let's put it this way: two people are learning something. Here's the etzem koyach chachmaseh. Here's the other person. They learn the subject matter, and then each one goes home. Fine. There was no hasaga nelamas there. But let's say the person who is the etzem koyach chachmaseh starts sharing, and he says, "You know what? I get what we just learned. I get like this." The other person may not get it completely, but he's going to get some short words. He'll hear something beyond. He may comprehend a little of it. That's hasaga nelamas. So it's not his galus. It's short words that came with effort. It would take him effort to do that. It's only nelamas. Levad be'etzem ha'chochma shelamayla hasaga niglis gam la'atzmei. That's higher than what's revealed to him.
If you put parentheses before the word relation and scholars,
I don't know what's missing here, frankly. Okay.
so you see that one is much easier to understand. Put parentheses before the word
But he didn't put parentheses.
Yeah, and if you read it that way.
Okay.
And then after the word levad. Okay, and you besides this thing, we're actually here. You can allow this other in basis study Inyan. The etzem hachachim shelamayla hasaga niglis gam ba'atzmei.
Fine.
And then that's qualifying. That line is just qualifying that leishu ben bizgal is being here to this kim hasaga.
If that helps you, resume the head. To me, it doesn't change anything. What you just said doesn't change the explanation. You're just saying how to read it to make it easier to understand. But I just explained it. What I just explained is exactly what he's saying here.
Maybe that's a difference between the fault letter rule, the natural letter. The Rebbe used to say, "Short more in the fault letter rule." Peterburg maybe should be even more.
But the question is if after Peterburg we're getting the Etzem HaSkola, or it's limited. Remember again, hello? He said like this. Remember he said, not only do other people not get it, he himself can't find ways to explain it, because it's not hasaga by him. Right? Even the person, Etzem Keich Chachmasa, even he within himself does not have it in a form of comprehension. It's more in a form of similar to sight. Okay? Even within himself it's not gili. That's the point. Correct? But with Yegiyah, he could give a taste of it. So that's called Nelamis. That's Mechol Shalamayla Masaga Niglas Gam Ba'atzmeh.
He could find some PCS. That's why it's
So it's higher than something that is revealed even to himself. Because it's not revealed. It's he himself does not really fully comprehend it. That's why he can't explain it to someone else. But with effort, he can give you a taste of it. He can give himself a taste and a taste to someone else. That's what it means.
The only thing is galus in Asad and Alamis, in this money is galus.
The only time it really happened perfectly was Matan Torah.
You learn it that way?
Matan Torah, they got completed.
Like what?
Both together.
But first, did you understand how I'm explaining it?
Yeah, no, I'm looking, but
Okay, the question is, no, because then we can make a distinction. If there's another way to explain it, I just want us to delineate. What is,
it could be I'm wrong, but I'm saying, the way I'm looking at it, I looked at it 2-3 times. Exactly here, you can have a basic assumption,
that's Hasagan Alamis.
but also, no, I don't think it's in Alamis. Because it's not this
Okay, fine.
This galus is only in Alamis. It's not this galus, this Indian is not this galus.
So what's Hasagan Alamis then? He's not explaining.
That's this galus. That could be this galus.
Hasagan Alamis is his galus.
Leishubam is galus. The Yefshal is this galus. Give Hasagan Alamis to that. And this is not this galus.
That's why it's called Hasagan Alamis.
This is
It's a ksarim.
It's galus.
Right?
He in the Asagan Elamis. It's not his galus.
Right.
It is Asagan Elamis in
no,
the time
no, he is this galus came by Hasagan Alamis.
No.
Only in Hasagan Alamis could be this galus. And this is not even this galus. This is only here. He could only be a couple of Asias. Shemaisim Seinian. But not that this galus.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Asagan Elamis is not
That's what I'm saying. Did you hear what I said? He's not changing anything.
No, I'm not changing anything, but I think that this is the way.
Well, are you talking how to read it? You're talking the Havana of it. If Havana is the same, who cares how you read it?
So let's see if the Havana is the same.
That's why I asked you if you heard what I said. You can't tell me Havana is different until you heard what I said. Maybe it's the same. That's why I asked you. My first question was, did you hear what I said?
I understood from you that that this is the level of Hasagan Alamis.
The Ashis. So what is the level?
Basic size.
Yes, absolutely.
And I'm saying it's possible to say that it's not the level of Hasagan Alamis.
What is Hasagan Alamis?
Before that? Yeah. I think you just be geared up. You can try to put a couple of words down, but it's not even the level of Hasagan Alamis, because Hasagan Alamis is his galus.
So,
They should
what are you talking? How could you say such a thing? It's called Nelamas because it's not real full his galas. That's why. What other way is there to say it? I don't understand what you're saying. What is Hasagan Nelamas then?
Hasagan Alamis is already the way it's been his galus in some.
Well, speak what it means. It's not Eishis Ksaris. What is it? Is he able to explain? Is that some Keich Chachmasei to someone else?
Somebody reads it and he
No, there's two people. One person understands the idea regularly, another with Etzem Keich Chachmasei. What is Hasagan Nelamas in this context?
But he's saying Bekia, he can only put it down.
I asked you, what is it? What you said? What it's not.
It's not his galus in these words. In other words, if somebody reads it, it's not like in a real way. He really has to try to figure out what this person's writing.
What's Hasagan Nelamas then?
Hasagan Alamis is the source.
Is that Etzem Keich Chachmasei Hasagan Nelamas?
No.
What is it then?
It's lower than that. It's better his galus.
So it's what means his galus. Please speak. He's able to explain it to someone.
Form of expression.
He's able to explain it.
Somewhat, yes.
So that Eishis Ksaris.
No.
So what is it then?
As he says, I think it's even higher than that.
So this is Eishis Ksaris is some expression, and Hasagan Nelamas is lower than that. It's more expression. So Hasagan Nelamas is even more than Eishis Ksaris. Is that what you're saying? Okay, I don't know where you're reading such a thing here. I don't get it at all. Where are you saying such a thing? Where are you getting it from? I mean,
Because I'm just reading the flow.
well, no. You read. I told you put things in context. Don't read two context. There's two people learning the same subject matter. Correct? One person. Yeah. The two people are studying. I mean, I don't understand at all what you're saying. Two people read the whole context. You're reading one line. I gave talk to me English. Talk to me. Look at me and talk to me.
Okay.
No, I don't want to hear lines now. Talk to me English, simple
This
English.
person is on another level.
He's on a different level completely. Can he communicate his level to this person or not? What's up? No, I know what he says. What's Hasagan Elemis? Just, I don't care what he said. You said it's not Eishis Ksaris. So tell me, can he convey his Etzem Keich HaChachma to the person who's a Chacham Katan or not? Can he or not? He can't. Where does Hasagan Elemis come into this picture? Is Hasagan Elemis his inability to communicate? Is that what Hasagan Elemis is? His hidden comprehension? Or is it some form of expression that he could communicate? What's Hasagan Elemis here? Except with Yigiyah and Eishis Ksaris. So I'm asking, where does Hasagan Elemis fit into the picture? Where does Hasagan Elemis fit into the picture? You have two individuals. One person learns the idea on one level, the other one on a different level. He can't get him. Is that clear? Where does Hasagan Elemis fit into here?
He's a seichel nivdal.
So where does Hasagan Elemis come into this picture? I'm asking a question. You said to me it's a level. Explain to us how you understand it.
Not here. Not what he's
saying in the next page with the Hasagan Elemis.
Hold on, one second. One second. We're not on the next page. We're reading here. He said a whole thing here.
No, that's what you said. He said Hasagan.
But forget about what he said. I asked you a question. Two people, can they communicate on this level of it? He can't. So what is Hasagan Elemis? Tell me what it is. Why don't you just say simple? Because you know why you don't want to say. No. Say Hasagan Elemis is Etzem Keich HaChachma. That's what he's trying to say. And Eishis Ksaris is already more. That's what you're saying. That's what you want to say. That's not for sure not what he's saying here. I mean, first, I should clarify. I'm not sure what you're saying. I asked you a question. He doesn't get each other. What is Hasagan Elemis? What is the level coming to?
I don't think here he's discussing Hasagan Elemis. That's what I'm saying.
So what did he say? He just said Kim Hasagan Elemis.
No, that's what they should have Misgalis. He actually is Misgalis Kim Hasagan Elemis.
He's saying that Hasagan Elemis cannot be Misgalis. You say that Hasagan Elemis is Misgalis. He said clearly it cannot be Misgalis.
By definition.
Okay, bottom line is, let's go back. I'll read it inside. To me, it's very clear, actually. He cannot reveal this. Now he's going to explain what Hasagan Elemis is. Rak b'yigiyah, only with the strong effort, exertion, he can somewhat bring it into short words, words, that carry the idea. Not that it contains the idea in the words, these short words, in a revealed way. It cannot come in a revealed way. Ki'im ba'hasagan elemis. The only way it can come is hasagan elemis levad. And that's the Eishis Ksarim. That's how I understand the lines here. Again, ki'im b'dvarim ha'nesim esinyan. And for sure, even to himself he can't reveal it. We just said. Because this Etzem Keich HaChachma is seeing something. It's like seeing. You can't explain it. You can contain it in some short words. So for sure you can't reveal it to someone else. How could you? Look, he just said the same words. In the Eishis Ksarim, that's how you can convey it. And like parentheses. Just like a fundamentally core good person, fundamental good person. The power of goodness in his soul, in the spirit. He's able to come to types of kindness, acts of kindness, and to awaken, and be aroused to do them, what a person who's good, that's outside of him, cannot come to that. He's giving an example of Etzem Keich HaChachma now with Chesed. There are some people who are so fundamentally good that the way they do goodness and the way they conceive of it, the way they arouse to do goodness, another good person who's not in that level, outside of them, cannot come to that at all. And the same thing with Chacham and Seichel. It's just an example of completely different category. It's not like you can train a person to be better and so on. It's a different level of chesed and kindness. Teiv be'etzem. Okay. So basically, there are two different categories completely. These two different realities. Okay? And on their own, the person who's on that Etzem Keich HaChachma cannot explain it to someone else, even in the same idea that they learned together. because he himself doesn't have it in a fully revealed way. So for sure he can't reveal it to someone else, as he said. However, with Yigiyah, with effort, he can give us a picture, and that's Hasagan Olamas. Apparently.
Because he said the line before, he said, Gamhu and Yichot Klal, Galis Mashu Yedeh B'Yinazeh. He cannot reveal it in any way.
Ki'im B'Yigiyah.
Right, he wrote the final says, Ki'im B'Yigiyah, but it's also not these Galis.
The Gam Yuvin Zeh Kamoy Hamev Medaitei. And we'll also understand this. We'll also understand this. Kamoy Hamev Medaitei. Mev Medaitei is talking about a person who, you explain something to because he has das, he gets certain things. You don't have to say as much. Right? It's a question of the Gemara, I think. Right? Mev Medaitei. Shel Ki'inyan Mev Medaitei. You know where it is brought? Maybe Medaitei. The Hainu shetzrichim lifseich. Maybe Medaitei means that you don't have to spell it all out because he gets it. Versteht maybe Medaitei. Versteht von sich allein. Like he understands it from. So the Hainu shetzrichim lifseich le'rak chudesh shalmachat. All you have to do is the means that all you have to do is open for him up like the eye of a needle. In the subject matter, and from him and on his own he'll come to it. You give him a little, you give him a lead. Why? Because that comes from the etzem keich chachmaseh. He has that core wisdom that he has essentially core. So Yeshli Be'etzem that he has on a core level a chush, teiv, a good instinct or a good intuition or a good sense. B'yeser, an abundant good sense, increasing good sense b'askala in idea in intelligence. Ein tzarich lahagid lo harbe. You don't have to tell him much. And for sure you don't have to spell out all the details. All you have to do is open the door. You have to open it for him. Get him on his way. Like launch him. And on his own, from his power of wisdom, he'll come to the understanding of the idea and on its details, and he, God forbid, won't make a mistake in any aspect of it. Okay, that's all. So he's giving another example of etzem b'keich chachmaseh, another keich chachma, that he just gets it without all the details and that type of thing. I guess it's on a lower level, but he's explaining a type of, it's basically a qualitative jump from regular wisdom. Person, either you get it or you don't get it, type of thing. Gam, another thing. A little you do. Gam mishu, another thing. Mishu meiv medaiti yevin hakavona amitis b'chol davar. A person who understands with his das, on his own, he'll understand and appreciate the kavona amitis, the true intention b'chol davar and everything. Shagam shelefi hanigla kavona be'efen achar. Even though on an ostensible level, on a revealed level, the intention may be another way. He understands that the true intention is so and so. This is like primis hakavon. This can be dangerous. Some people who don't have that awareness and they think they do. There are people like that too. Hagam she'en nigla klal ba'advarim, even though this kavana was not spelled out. In other words, let's say the Rebbe says something. He doesn't spell out exactly what his intention is. Mashiach, let's say. Okay? It's not Ota. So, and perfect example. Hagam she'en nigla b'klal ba'advarim. It's not revealed at all in the words. That's because of his depth of comprehension. Shadvarim lo yachilenu. That the words themselves do not contain, they're not limited. Al kain nidis hakavana be'efen achar. That's why it could appear that the intention is a different way. To someone who's more superficial. Oy mishum kvoid alikim hasta davar, or because the pasuk says that the kvoid alikim, the God's honor, is is concealed. Well, Mishu Mevin Midaite, however, someone who understands Midaite, has that core intelligence, he understands the true intention. It's only because in him radiates the core intelligence that's higher than revealed intelligence. Because when you read it, or you hear it, apparently you could say, well, the intention is one thing. Because in Seichel Goli, the words are too limited to reveal the deeper kavanah. But because he has fundamentally, not because he understands the words better, because he has a fundamentally different level of understanding, he gets it in a way that cannot be expressed in Seichel Goli. And you see this. You see at times two people argue about subject matter. I'll give you an example. I'm not mentioning names. I saw an argument going on, which was, someone said that the Rebbe writes in the Sichos that our custom from the Frierdiker Rebbe is more powerful than Torah Shebeksav, than the written Torah. And he wants to now apply it to everything. So I came into the conversation and I said, so he's reading to me a line. So I said, but it also says Chvivin Alai Divrei Seifrim, that it should be more precious to the words of the Rabbanon, of the Seifrim, of the Rabbanon, than Divrei Torah. So you're going to say that Divrei Torah therefore is not as strong as something in the Arais is not as strong in Torah as a Din of Rabbanon? It says it should be precious to you, maybe perhaps precisely because it's not so stringent, because you love God so much, so you do things that even the things that are not specifically spelled out, you also do with a lot more passion. But to go learn from this and start saying that, the more the Minig Yisrael it is, the more powerful the commitment is. And the guy just wouldn't stop arguing with me. So I said to him, you just don't get it. He's reading to me the words, but you don't get that this is a more of a feeling. Like when it says, when the Frierdiker Rebbe said, Mela, the Chassid said, Mela Ashrei V'Alitzim, but I heard Chitas directly from the Rebbe. Talking about a personal feeling, I'm not talking about tampering with halacha. But here's an example of someone by the book. As they state, it says that you should have more, it should be more precious to you. So you could come to the conclusion that a minig is greater than the Torah, God forbid. This is where a person is book smart but not using common sense and doesn't get the spirit of it. And very often you'll find subjects where a person will read something but they didn't have what we call the lachluchis. They didn't have a mashpia. If they didn't grow up in an environment where this idea is taught, they know it from the book and there's something lacking. It's a subtlety. You can't even explain it. You can't even train someone. You only pick it up through osmosis. You pick it up in a situation. And there are many examples for it. I'm not saying it's an example of Etzem Koyach Chachmoseh per se. It's an example of something that's beyond comprehension, but it's also in reading the same line in the Sikha, how you take out, how you derive, what do you learn from it. So it's like either reading the words or reading between the lines, the spirit of the word, like he's saying here. So you understand the kavanah can be completely different if you read it one way, and a person who really gets it understands immediately that it's not that. There's some things also immediately it rubs you wrong when you're really trained. You know something's wrong with this, even though you can't even put your finger on it. Another person says, "What's wrong?" It's all, you sense it. You have a certain sense that it's beyond. It's like he says, a chush. All this is an example to explain the Hamshach and Alemes that he spoke in the previous chapter of the Koyach HaMaskil. So the Sogan Alemes is explaining Hamshach and Alemes. Interesting. Okay. So maybe correct. It may not be the Mok. I thought it's like the Etzem, the Etzem Koyach HaMaskil. Okay, let's see how he spells it out.
He's saying a Sogan, not saying Hamshach.
But in the last chapter, he ended Hamshach and Alemes, Koyach HaMaskil. That's mushlim mitzvah adavar. It's not mushlim from etzem adavar. Basically, the level of keiches nalamim, not the keiches atzmim. So he says, "Yuvan zamin hasagan alamas." So now he's going to explain how hasagan alamas helps us understand shochan. It's the conclusion of the chapter. So, well, that is a similar. We'll understand hamshacha, the transmission that's concealed, the koyach hamaskil. Let me just explain what koyach hamaskil is again. In the soul, the core soul, there's core faculties, but that's not koyach hamaskil. The core faculties are not even a source; they just are carried by the soul. Then they come into a level. From there comes Eispashtus, an expression that's the root of all seichel, koyach hamaskil. And he says koyach hamaskil is mushal. You can't call it seichel because it's only a power of bringing seichel. But you also, it's not outside of seichel. Now you're talking already something that is a source of the intelligence. So it's already in a category of source. In a Muslim etzem asechel. It's Muslim etzis asechel, and a Muslim etzem asechel. So he says that's what we're going to understand that from Machshav Sogan Elem. So what does he say? Here is how he goes. Well, that is a Yuvanam Shachan Elem is the same thing. We'll understand the concealed transmission, the koyach hamaskil, of the power of conceiving. It's not seichel yet. Nevertheless, it's not completely detached or apart from this the seichel dikin. How would you translate mushlo? We said it already. Not negate. Here, it's not apart from completely, not detached. What would you say, Rabbi Tachta? In English, nicht abgefleckt. That's the right word. Not refuted. No, it's not. No, abgefleckt is not. Abgefleckt is sometimes abgefleckt refuted. There's another abgefleckt in Yiddish, which means that it's not possible. Something that is. It's like. Here, what he's saying here, basically, that it's not completely apart and detached and removed from seichel. That would be the content. See, shlila sometimes means negative. Like when we say there's Yiddish achiyuv is let me say what you say conductive. What's conductive intelligence? There's reductive. There's not conductive. No, like we say process of elimination by negating something. Okay, fine.
I think it's not in a separate realm from.
No, we know what it means. We're talking about what is mushal of the word. How would be the best English translation? It means it's not removed completely from seichel. Kamoy hasagan elemes, like we said before, like the hasagan elemes, like the concealed comprehension. She'ena b'chinas seichel goliklal. It's not at all any type of revealed seichel. To the point that he can't bring it in any type of revealed way, not to someone else, not to himself. Canal. It's still in the realm of intelligence. And also, as we see it in the person who understands on his own, it's also meiva medaite. It's not that he has some inner secret; it's intelligence that he gets something in a different dimension. And by the way, here, yeah, the be'em is zeg. Okay, that's now the parentheses that concludes the chapter. The be'em.
It's not negated from expressing the idea. It seems to be different levels.
No, he just explained the idea of etzem koyach chachmas, someone that gets on a different level, that he himself is not really revealed by him or to others. He explained another way of understanding that gam yuvan zeh k'meh meiva medaite. That someone gets something that can't really be explained, but it's seichel, but it's beyond seichel. Basically, that's what he's saying. He's just referring to what he said before. The be'emes, in the parentheses, in truth, zeu gili mikeich hamaskil. In truth is that this level, this asagan alemas that he's talking about, is. Okay, let's read it. Maybe. The be'emes zeu gili mikeich hamaskil. In truth, this is a revelation of the power of the koyach. I'm sorry?
The mahus etzem hachokma. The keach chokma se'atzim, the mahus etzem.
I'm not.
It's the same thing.
Okay, let me read this again. We'll also understand from this Dam Shachan Alemes, which is the extension from below the transmission, the concealed transmission to Koyach HaMaskil, that comes from the power of Koyach HaMaskil, the power to conceive of ideas. It's not seichel. Nevertheless, it's not completely negated from or removed from the seichel, from the idea. Like Hasagan Alemes, it's not at all revealed seichel. To the point that he can't bring it to revelation, I said before, except in the form of Yegiya, where he brings it Be'esis Ksarim. Okay. In other words, Hasagan Alemes, right, based on what he said till now before the parentheses, is that it's concealed. You can't reveal it. The only way you could is some type of general idea when you give it through short words or type of taste of it. But still, fundamentally, Hasagan Alemes, because it's coming from Etzem Koyach HaChmaseh. That's Hasagan Alemes. So that's a similarity to Koyach HaMaskil. Correct? So if you think about it in the levels, let me just discuss the levels. Remember in the previous chapter you said like this: there's Etzem HaNefesh, core soul. Then there's the core faculties that are not even a source. They're like the Flintstone. Core faculty, not even a source. The Hiyuli, the Etzem Hiyuli. Then there's Hiyuli as an Amokir. The next level is now it's a source. That's Koyach HaMaskil. Yeah, that's where you're already now a source for intelligence. And then there's Seichel, Goli. That's 4 levels. He called Koyach HaMaskil Hamshachan Alemes. To understand Hamshachan Alemes, level 3, he went to explain Seichel, Hasagan Alemes. What's Hasagan Alemes? Is not all the levels of comprehension he discussed on top, because here he discussed Seichel, Seichel Hayzeh Spashus Koyach Chachma, Letz Koyach Chachma. It's not Etzem Koyach Chachma. Because even the Chachma Seichel, Etzem Koyach Chachma, he doesn't get back to till Etzem Koyach Chachma, say down below. It says, Kimu in Haskola Atmi, Makal in Haskola Etzem Koyach Chachma, Kimu Spashus Shalavat. Yeah. So the 2 things in the parentheses where he spoke, remember the 2 things he spoke about, a person who, the details of an idea and the core theory, like what explained to the Ragat Shavar, that's still not Etzem Koyach HaChmaseh. Etzem Koyach HaChachma is Hasagan Alemes. That is the person who's on a completely different level. And he can't explain it to anyone else because he himself doesn't fully comprehend it. So it's Seichel, but it's beyond Seichel. That's an example for Koyach HaMaskil, level 3. Okay. And he said, he can't explain, that's Hasagan Alemes. But he said the only time something can come out of it when you're with Yegiya, you can reveal short words, some taste of it. But it's not really Begoli. Okay. So it's beyond really comprehension. That's why you can't really explain it to him. Hamev Medaite is similar level. That's he says Gam Yuvan, because Hamev Medaite comes, he says it's Mitzad Etzem Koyach HaChmaseh. Why does he get it? Because he has Etzem Koyach HaChmaseh. That's what he said so far. 1 second. Now he said Al Derech Zeh Yuvan Hamshachan Alemes. Now he's going back to Koyach HaMaskil. That's why I'm summing it up. It's not Seichel, but it's not beyond Seichel. So it's not revealed Seichel. Fine. That's all the example for that level. Now, this parentheses, I think, is going back to the previous chapter, the levels. That's why I mentioned. So right now we've established that Koyach HaMaskil is Hamshachan Alemes, is the same level as is like Hasagan Alemes. Koyach Etzem HaChachma. Okay? But here's the question: is Etzem Koyach HaChachma Koyach HaMaskil or not? How do you know that? No. Hold on, we don't understand. I'm going before the parentheses. We didn't read the parentheses yet. I don't know if you're reading correct. I just want the parentheses is not so clear. You have it clear, the parentheses?
Maybe.
Maybe not. Okay, let me speak it out. Then tell me what you think. 1 second. So right now the question is, we just gave an example. Hasagan Alemes is etzem keich chachma, which is higher than logical explanation that people, and it's not also subject to gradations. Remember that. The etzem keich chachma, because it's not like you grow and you can explain it and you grow toward it. And chachma you could explain. Intelligence you grow is accumulative. Is what do you call it? Huh? Yeah. Etzem keich chachma is not like that, which is why I was thinking when he was saying that's really not keich hamaskil, that's etzem hakeiches, because keich hamaskil he says is a mokir that is affected by the flow. But that's what I think he's trying to conclude. That's why I think it's confusing here. Okay, but bottom line is, but he did say keich hamaskil is hamshachan. The hamshachan alemes and the hasagan alemes is similar. So what do we have from that? That etzem keich hachachma is similar to keich hamaskil. Correct? It's seichel. It's already a mokir, but it's not. The question is that accurate? And I think the parenthesis is coming to qualify that. That's why he says be'emes. What's be'emes mean? Be'emes means, when you really break it down in truth, so let's read the be'emes again now, based on this. The be'emes, zeu gili.
What is he talking about?
I'm reading it.
Maybe in Midaita?
You already understand. You're a step ahead of me. You understand it already. I'm reading it like I never read it before, okay? I want to read Pshuti Shemikra here. 1 second. I'm not
talking about Sehu.
You make an argument for something. I want to read what he says before you explain. The be'emes, in truth, zehu gili mikeich hamaskil. What's a gili mikeich hamaskil? The pashtus. This hasagan alemes. The etzem keich hachmaseh. Hasagan alemes we just established is hamshachan alemes.
Hasagan alemes is talking in the next line.
The whole chapter is Hasagan Alemes. You remember the first line of the chapter? He just said that to understand Hamshachan Alemes, he's using Hasagan Alemes to explain it. So what do we have from this? Hasagan Alemes is etzem keich chachmaseh. Hold on. That's it. The be'emes zeu gili mikeich hamaskil. So that's a gili from the keich hamaskil. So zeh inyan keich chachmaseh atzmi. So in other words, when a person is mevim medaite, he understands on his own. He understands the kavanah just when you give him one little hint. Or a person who has that under qualitatively different understanding, that's a reflection of the keich hamaskil. Gilim keich hamaskil. In other words, this person, what makes him unique? He has a so-called open channel to the keich hamaskil. So he gets things on a different level. That's Bapashas what he's saying here. You agree?
Yeah.
You disagree with that? What I just said?
No.
Okay, so he has an open channel. That's a gili mekeich hamaskil. Shezein keich chachmoshe atzmi. That means when you say someone's a chacham bekeich what's the lashon? Chacham bekeich chachmei atzmi. Mitzad etzem keich chachmoshe. Chacham mitzad etzem keich chachmoshe. That is. What's keich hachmaseh? Etzem keich hachmaseh? Etzem keich hachmaseh is keich hamaskil. Chachma is here, keich hamaskil is here, and he has an open channel, so he has something unique that others don't have. Okay? Fine. I think that we can all agree. V'hasagan alemes zeu sha'aseichli gufu k'may muhus etzem hachachma. So it's a lower level. It's not. Remember, keich hamaskil is not sichli gufa. Keich hasagan alemes is one step lower. That the seichel itself has an understanding. It's not, keich hamaskil is not seichel. Keich hamaskil is a power that brings you seichel. When you say the channel is open for him, he has that connection. When you say sagan alemes, you're saying he has a comprehension. That's already, the seichel itself is on the level of the mahus etzem hachachma. So it's very similar to it, but it's a step beyond. It's already in the world of seichel. I would say, very simple, the way I would say, that when a person is be'etzem keich hachmaseh, even when he's asleep, he has etzem keich hachmaseh. Even when a person is asleep, he has the channel open, but doesn't mean it's active. When it activates and he has an idea, that's already a seichel. So his seichel is now higher seichel. In other words, you could say two things about a person on that level. You could say he's fundamentally superior, period. Or you could say when he conceives of an idea or he reads an idea that you read, he just gets his seichel differently. He's not getting some new revelation from some type of miraculous place. He has another quality of way of understanding seichel. So his seichel is higher. So therefore, Machsog Nelemes is a step lower than Koyach HaMaskil. He's, I think, qualifying because he just said the Koyach HaMaskil that you learn. How do we understand the Koyach HaMaskil from Machsog Nelemes? So in this parenthesis, he's qualifying and saying, no, we learn from it, but it's one step. It's when you be'emes, you break it down. It's two different levels. It still teaches us about Etzem Koyach HaChachma. It's still an example.
It's the same level. The bottom line is the same level. Maybe
I don't know what you mean by same. The word same is a very relative word.
Is having the Etzem Koyach HaChachma.
But it's a distinction between Asog Nelemes and Koyach HaMaskil, for sure.
But Lamai said, in both cases,
Why are you making a but? Why is the but necessary?
you have to know that Shachar.
One second. Hold on a second. The whole chapter is based on an example for Koyach HaMaskil from Asog Nelemes. To understand that, we understand the example. It's a removed level. It's not Seichel, but it's not Seichel. Right? Hold on. Now he's saying, but if you really break it down, I have to tell you, Asog Nelemes is one step lower than Koyach HaMaskil. It's Seichel itself that's experiencing the Mechus Etzem HaChachma, whereas Koyach HaMaskil is not Seichel itself. Okay, one second. Hold on. That's how I would explain the first two lines. Look, we got to read it slowly. And then, you also, by the way, that will answer the thing, Eisis K'tsadim. Asog Nelemes is already something, because it's already something you could say. Koyach HaMaskil doesn't have that at all. Etzem Koyach HaChachma doesn't have that. Yeah. Asog Nelemes. No, not necessarily. Asog Nelemes means that you have a comprehension that's different than everyone, and from that you could have a revelation. It's probably relevant in the Nimshal. Okay, let's see. Next line. V'amevim medaite zeu hagili ma'etzem Koyach HaChachma lahavim medaite. It looks to me. No, hold on. Hasog Nelemes hasichli gufu k'mei Mechus Etzem HaChachma. Amevim medaite zeu hagili ma'etzem Koyach HaChachma lahavim medaite. Yeah, it's a third level. It's like this. Not in Koyach HaMaskil. In Seichel. Hold on, I didn't get to the Im Rabbeinu yet. 1 second. But I'm reading it now in order. I blacked that out because I didn't understand it, so I want to read it again. That's exactly what I want to be in for 1 second. It looks like to me, see, Hamevim Medaite is, let's spell it out, is again a person. He says, Hamevim Medaite is Mitzad Etzem Koyach HaChachma.
This is like we started in the beginning of the
Zeh Gili Me'etzem. Right. HaKoyach HaChachma Lahavim Medaite. I can't really see the distinction because the first one says Asichli Gufa Hu Kamay Mechus Etzem HaChachma, and here he says maybe that Gili Me'etzem Koyach HaChachma Lahavim Medaite. Yeah, I think the diuk is like this. Here's, I think, no, there's two. The Meiv Medaite is the Daite Etzem Koyach HaChachma or not. Here, I think this is how it works. Yeah, it's a lower level. It's very, very subtle. I think I got it. I'm smiling because it's pretty powerful. He says like this. The Hamevim Medaite is like this. You're a person that understands on your own things. Right? Now you're here, all you need is someone to open up, like you said. Pasach is right. He just opens up and you'll get it. What is that? That's a Gili Etzem Koyach HaChachma is Lahavin Medaite, is affecting your das to get it. It's not Seichel itself as Etzem Koyach HaChachma. It's you have das, and because you have a so-called connection of your das to that Etzem Koyach HaChachma, there's a Gili of it inside of you, which means this person, maybe Medaite, may not be a person who's fundamentally Etzem Koyach HaChachma all the time. In certain situations, he has that. That's what it sounds like to me, that it's a level lower. He's made Medaite, that there's a Gili of Etzem Koyach HaChachma, Lahavin Medaite, that he should understand it from his das. Because his date and Gili Etzem Chachma seems like two different things. That's what it appears to me. It's very, very short. Okay. Okay, so what do we have from this? Koyach HaMaskil is one level. 1 second. Koyach HaMaskil is one level. A drop, which is Etzem Koyach HaChachma there. When it comes into Sichli, it's Asog Nelemes. And then from there comes to Mevim Medaite. Yeah. 1 second. Ube'emes gam ha'askola b'zeh. Ube'evan hazeh k'may mitzad ha'etzem. So he's saying, in truth, even the haskola b'zeh, he's saying that it's not, that even the haskola of das is be'evan hazeh k'may mitzad ha'etzem. like it's coming from the etzem. He's lifting it up a little. Because that's the be'emes. What's the be'emes? What's he coming to qualify with be'emes? He just said it's coming from etzem keicha chachma. Because clearly he's lahavin medaite, he's seeing as being a little lower. So he's saying no. In truth, this haskola b'zeh. Okay, the truth is you could say be'emes goes on both levels, also on hasag and alemes. Yeah. In other words, even though he's saying it's a drop lower than keicha maskil, it's still haskola b'zeh is kamei mitzad etzem. So therefore, the moshel, the example of hasag and alemes still fits to amshachan alemes of keicha maskil.
How do you see that this is lower than keicha maskil? The maybe
What's the parentheses come to add? Why does he need a parentheses if not?
I don't know. He's saying the same.
What do you mean you don't know? 1 second. He's saying it. There's a reason. He's coming to qualify.
But he's saying the same way.
No. Because he says, Zeh sichli gufa hukamoi. And keicha maskil is not sichli gufa. That's the reason. No, because clearly he wants to say Amev Midaite is another level. Why would he bring it if not?
Well, it's the same way he is.
So why is he bringing it?
I don't know.
No, I think it's mashmed lehavin Midaite. You want to say it's the same? Fine. Maybe. I don't think so. Maybe. You know what? Let me tell you. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not sure. ובאמס גם הסקול בזה באיפה כזה כמו מצד העצם, ובאם רבינו מבור שזהו כיח המשכיל מהמדרגה על יינו שבי. Right, so then, no problem. Then basically I have two things in Keich HaMaskil. Keich HaMaskil that's higher, Keich HaMaskil that's lower, and that's some Keich HaMaskil. I want to see the Imre Bina. I must see the Imre Bina. Let's do the Kitzur, and then we'll stop. Huh? But Yuvin Zeh Masagan Alemes will understand this from the concealed comprehension. Shezeu Hasagan Nifla Be'erech Haba Metzem Keich HaMaskil. This is a comprehension that's completely beyond awesome. Be'erech Haba, which comes from Etzem, the core power of wisdom. Like the comprehension of this, the detached or the intelligence that's apart, separate. Malachim that float around. V'hi l'mayla mitfisa klei hasaga. And this is higher than being grasped in the containers of comprehension. That's why you cannot reveal and explain it. Only to express it in short words that carry the idea. And a wise person like this, everything, his knowledge is in this type of fashion, this higher level. Same thing, a person, I don't know if it's lower. He didn't say it. It's similar. That this comes with Satuv Etzem Chush HaSkola. It appears to me it's lower. But this comes from his natural instinct and sense in intelligence. Hey, 1 second. V'Haskola hu kamei mitzad Etzem. And the Haskola, that means even the Seichel is also like the Etzems. So all this is all about a level that is beyond Seichel, but it's still Seichel. What I'm still concerned with, which I'm sure we'll learn in the next chapter, is where does this fit with Keiches Atzmim? Because remember, we're talking about the story of Batzilas tells us also the hidden Machshavas Nelames. What's Machshavas Nelames from Rabbeinu Shem Tov in the story? So now we've gotten to Keich HaMaskil. That's the secret, like the hidden story. Nelames, Machshavas Nelama, Hasaga Nelama, Hamshachan Nelama. But there's still Atzmim that are even higher. 1 second. That's the Sfiras Agnuzis, as they are in the revealed way. Yeah, because in Etzem Sfiras Agnuzis itself, we're going to learn there's Etzem and there's Giluyim, there's the Mokir. We're still now in the Mokir of them, which is the. You mean Etzem Yuli? Yeah, it looks like it. But right now we're still in the Mokir part. Okay, let's stop here. We did chapter 97, page 187 and 188.